Hello friends, welcome to Tarunayas. Today we will be discussing daily current affairs of 3rd of November 2022. So let's start with the first news of the day. The first news is about the Miyawaki Forest. Now recently, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has dedicated a maize garden and a Miyawaki. This is Miyawaki Forest to Ekta Nagar in Gujarat. So this is the entrance of the Miyawaki Forest. Now what is this Miyawaki Forest? Basically, Miyawaki Forest is a technique. It's a technique to grow urban forest. Now if we look at the forest, then it takes more than years for a complete forest with appropriate density to develop. However, the Japanese botanist by the name Dr. Akira Miyawaki had developed this technique of planting different species of the trees within a given land to develop this dense forest, and this technique is basically used in the urban forestry. However, what happens in this technique, the plants are planted very closely so that a density can be created, a dense forest can be created. So there are approximately 4 layers of the trees because different species of the trees are grown. Therefore, 4 layers of the forest and canopy is developed. The canopy. So there is a shrub layer, then there is a sub-tree layer, the tree layer and the canopy layer. So this technique, like I said, it employs planting trees very close to each other, and various species of the trees are planted. Within 2 to 3 years, a complete forest can be regenerated, and the growth of the forest is 10 times faster and 30 times more denser. The technique can be used to develop floral forest, timber forest, fruit and medicinal gardens. Now let's look at the maize garden. Now what happens in the maize garden? A maze is a kind of a puzzle in which you enter from one place and then you have to exit from the other place. However, there is a sort of a maze or a puzzle. The direction puzzle is created and we have to find the way. So that is what the maize garden is. So basically this maize garden has been designed by planting trees in such a way that a maze is created. Now Gujarat maize, which our Prime Minister had dedicated, it is spread across 3 acres of the land with a pathway of 2.1 kilometer and has been it has been made in the shape of the Shri Yantra, which is known for to promote prosperity and peace. More than 1.8 lakh of saplings have been planted to add to the aesthetic beauty of the maize. So this is how the maize looks like. This is our Prime Minister, and this is what the maize looks like, and it has been formed in the shape of this Shri Yantra. So this is what the shape of the Shri Yantra or the Shri Yantra looks like. The next news of the day is about the Myositis. Now, recently what happened, the Indian cinema actor Samantha Ruth Prabhu, she had revealed that she suffers from an autoimmune disease which is known as the Myositis. Now, what is this autoimmune disease? Sometimes what happens, our own cells, they start killing our own body cells. So, for example, the immune cells, for example, the natural killer cells or NK cells as they are known, the NK cells, the T cells and the B cells, they are responsible for the immune system of our body. However, the cells, they have this capability to differentiate or distinguish between the foreign body and the self cell. However, in the case of autoimmune diseases, due to certain genetic condition or other mutations that occurs in the gene, the cells fail to distinguish between the body cells and the foreign antigen. So thus they start killing their own cells. So this is what the autoimmune disease means, that the immune system of the body reacts against the own cell. So myositis is basically an autoimmune disease. Now it majorly affects the muscles, which makes them weak, painful and tired, means that they become more susceptible to pain, and they become more susceptible to weakening and fatigue. Around 4 to 22 cases are detected in both children and adults. However, there are various cases of myositis or types of myositis. Except for the one type of myositis, it is more commonly found among the women. The disease is more likely to affect women. So what happens, what are the symptoms of myositis? Basically it includes fatigue, difficult in breathing, because it affects the muscles, and muscles, they form such an important part of our body. If we look at the breathing system of our, or respiratory system of our body, which includes the physical breathing, so the muscles which are involved in the physical breathing, the diaphragm and the pulmonary muscles, etc., etc., they become weak, and therefore there is a difficulty in breathing, there is muscle pain, and there is soreness. That means a soreness results from certain level of inflammation. However, currently there is no medical treatment for this condition, but immunosuppressant are given, and yoga and physiotherapy is helpful. What are immunosuppressant? Immunosuppressant basically are chemical that suppresses the immune system. Such medicines or immunosuppressants are given to the patients who have recently undergone the organ transplantation. They are given, immunosuppressants are given to the patients of certain heart diseases as well. So in order to suppress the immune system, so that the body does not react with the graft or other organ that has been transplanted. All right. So this is what the immunosuppressant is, and the most commonly used immunosuppressant by the doctors is cyclosporin A. So let's discuss, there are some types of myositis. One is the dermatomyositis, that basically affects the skin, muscles, and etc. There is inclusion body myositis. There is juvenile myositis, that affects the children. Juvenile means children. There is polymyositis, and there is toxic myositis. That was it for the myositis. Now let's move on to the next news of the day. So next news is about the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister and the Tourism Department. They have redeveloped the tombs of Rakshan and Taj Bibi. Now let's discuss who are these two individuals. Now when we talk about the Rakshan and Taj Bibi, during the Mughal times, especially during the reign of Mughal Emperor Akbar, these two individuals, they belong to the 16th century. Rakshan was a Sufi saint. He was a Sufi saint devoted to Lord Krishna. And there is this Taj Bibi. She was the wife of Emperor Akbar, and she was also known as the Mughal Mirabai, and she was also a devotee of Lord Krishna. So the original name of the Rakshan is Sayyid Ibrahim Khan, and he belonged to the 16th century Sufi poet who was, there is no clarity about the birthplace of Rakshan either in Amroha or in Hardoi. He became the follower of Lord Krishna, and he spent his entire life in Vrindavan. He wrote the kind of the poetry which is known as the Doha, Padavali and Savaiya. Now let's talk about the Taj Bibi. She is also known as the Mughal Mirabai, and she was the daughter of the Muslim nobleman named Padna Khan, and she was married to Emperor Akbar, and she was also appointed as the protector of the Gokul area. The next news of the day is about the IMT TRILAT. Basically, IMT TRILAT, it's a exercise, a military exercise. It's a military exercise, and this is the first edition of this exercise between India, Mozambique and Tanzania. It's a trilateral exercise that started at Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Dar es Salaam is a place in Tanzania. What is it? Basically, it's a trilateral maritime exercise, and since it is the first edition of this exercise, so this becomes very important. Now, if we talk about the objective of this exercise, the objective of the exercise is to develop the capability of the forces, especially the maritime forces of the countries, to enhance the interoperability of the forces and to strengthen the maritime cooperation. If we look at the locations of these countries, then they are situated close to the Arabian Sea. They are located close to the Arabian Sea, and Arabian Sea, especially the area of the Persian Gulf, is notorious for the sea piracy. So in order to have a proper law and order in the sea lanes of communication, these bilateral maritime exercise becomes of utmost importance when it comes to reviving the role of India as a regional security provider, and also promoting the Sagar scheme of India. So Sagar, it is basically the safety and growth of all in the region. And which region? It is the Indian Ocean region. Indian Ocean region. So the Indian Navy was presented by INS Tarkash, which is a missile frigate, the Chetak helicopter by HAL, which is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and Marcos. This is Marcos. Marcos are the special forces of the Marine Division. All right. The next news is about the rhinoceros. Now, rhinoceros were in news because a study was published in a journal named Nature and People. Now, the journal analyzes the shrinking of size of the horn of rhino owing to hunting. The students of the researchers who have published this study in this journal, they analyzed the photographs of 5 centuries that have been taken by the wildlife photographers, and they have concluded that the size of the rhino horn has decreased over a period of time, and this was resulted due to the hunting. So let's talk about the rhino now, because rhinos are in news. So we will specifically focus on the Indian rhino, and we will see a brief about the African rhino and Indian rhino as well, and we will look at the conservation status of the rhinos, and what are the programs that India run in order to conserve the rhinos and increase their population. So Indian rhino, basically it's a species which is native to the Indian subcontinent. That means it is not only found in India, however, but it is found in the regions of Bhutan and some parts of the Nepal, which is adjacent to the Tarai region of the Uttar Pradesh. It is the only large mammal species whose status in the IUCN Red List have been changed from endangered to vulnerable. So the current IUCN status of the Indian rhino is vulnerable. And the status was changed in the year 2008. It faces threat from the poaching, climate change, and habitat reduction or decline in the habitat. Climate change is because of the climate change, there is a vagary of monsoon, and there is a frequent flood which is seen in the region of Kaziranga National Park. And due to the annual flooding of the Kaziranga National Park, it poses a threat to the population of the rhinos. And Kaziranga hosts the largest population of rhino, whereas the Pobitara National Park has the highest density of Indian rhino. So this picture I have taken from WWF. So let's look at the different species of the rhino. The first species, I will focus on Asian rhino first, and then we will move on to the African rhino. So the first Asian rhino is the Indian one-horned rhino. We know that Indian rhino has IUCN status as vulnerable, and it has only one horn. So this needs to be noted, that Indian rhino has one horn. So there is a Javan rhino and there is Sumatran rhino. The IUCN status of the Javan rhino is critically endangered, and as well as the Sumatran rhino is also critically endangered. The population of Sumatran rhino has been described as decreasing, whereas the population of Javan rhino has been described as stable. So the population is less than 80 of Sumatran rhino, and it is approximately 74, and it is considered as stable. So if we look at the Javan rhino, there is only one horn. So in Asian rhino, Javan and Indian greater one-horned rhino, there is only one horn. However, in the Sumatran rhino, if you look at the picture, there is two horn. Now let's move on to the black rhino. Black rhino Black rhino has 2 horns. All right, and this is critically endangered, and it is found in Africa, region of Nigeria, etc., etc. This is white rhino. The color is very light, and it has a IUCN status of near threatened, and it also has 2 horns. So the African rhinos have 2 horns, whereas in Asian rhinos only the Sumatran rhino has 2 horns, and the Javan and the Indian rhino, they have only 1 horn. And if we compare the Asian rhinos, then Indian greater 1 horn rhino is the largest species amongst the Asian rhinos. Javan and Sumatran rhinos are comparatively smaller in size. So these are some of the efforts taken by the Indian government, the Indian Rhino Vision 2020, which meant that the rhinos population had to be doubled. So India succeeded in doubling the rhinos population, and we at present have close to 3,000 population of the rhinos, with Pobitara having the highest density and Kaziranga National Park having the largest population of Indian rhino. The wild to wild translocation. There has been a proposal that the rhinos from the Kaziranga National Park have to be moved to the other national parks such as Orang, Popitara, and the national parks in Uttar Pradesh, so as to distribute their population and reduce their threat of declining population. The National Rhino Conservation Strategy, which includes breeding program and safe translocation of rhino population. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching Tarunayas. Have a nice day.